So, kia ora everybody, and welcome to this session from the Learner First of the moveNprove. So, kia ora everybody. What I wanted to share with all the teachers across Aotearoa today is just a bit of a background with the moveNprove and why it is so useful today in today's realm of science of learning, explicit teaching, because that's where the origins were. So these slides and things are to help you understand or share with teachers where all these rich routines, especially the moveNprove, can actually be part of a balanced diet that ticks the explicit box and also the inquiry. We'll go through why they were created, how it supports explicit responsive teaching, and also, where we can access these for the schools who have been partnering with us for the last few years and schools who haven't yet or want to access them on the main domain. So let's look at a bit of a background. So the background of these came from the work in Queensland. And you can see from the diagram in front of you, working with schools across Queensland at the time, when I was the advisor there, schools were doing the art and science of teaching. Now, this was a 3-year program. And it's nice to know this because this is the grounds where all these ideas came from. They were actually part of the work we did with schools in Queensland around getting ready for explicit teaching and the art and science of teaching and learning. And from that, teachers were able to balance both explicit teaching areas, because we developed in Australia a program similar to the programs that you are using today. And these were designed for the supporting supplementary activities that are needed to make the program maximize its impact. So you can see from like a few years ago that schools are looking at the explicit teaching and they were looking at their rich routines, especially the moveNprove you can see there. And the moveNprove hasn't really changed in its intent and rationale over those years. Just a quick one. Another thing it looked at was combining back then how the warm-ups, well-chosen ones, like the moveNprove, are able to link into explicit teaching. So the moveNprove itself has been around for almost 10 years now, and the origins of it were on the Sunshine Coast around schools like Yamundi, which some people may have been to from Aotearoa. And it has various forms. And in its initial form, you can see there on the pictures, Move It to Prove It. That's what it was called. And it combined kids in prep, new entrant, right the way through into high school. What's been wonderful about this for us today, so is the evolution of it. So going from the work in Queensland, being picked up by the ministry here as part of the just-in-time maths we did with the Learner First back in 2021, rippling that across, putting them on the public domain, and then moving it across. And the moveNproves in the pilot studies in Aotearoa were one of the most commonly used activities. So we thought we need to make this part of the Learner First program when schools sign up in the first year to help teachers get this right. Now, let's just take a moveNprove. So the actual example we're looking at here is a common one, but let me take you through some of the rationale. They're certainly not about catching students out. It's actually devised from Hattie's work about making thinking visible. And you can tell teachers who use these that the origins of these were actually the smart test stroke NAPLAN questions that schools were using, because the smart test today is coming from NAPLAN Online, and the moveNproves were born out of that. So it's very relevant for me now in Aotearoa that the two are linked. And these questions, teachers would often say, it's easy to see why kids get these wrong, but it would be more powerful as a teacher for me to actually see why kids are going to these different different solutions, and also why or what I need to do to move their learning forward. So what the moveNprove did was it was an opportunity for a teacher at the start of a unit to look at what do my tamariki bring with me. Now, that's an essential part of science of learning, explicit teaching, mastery. They all say, what do teachers do before they decide the kids need page 16 of the book? We need to have an activity that's not just a quiz of procedural number facts, an actual one conceptually designed so a teacher can see, Who needs more explicit? Who needs practice? Who needs extension? Who needs transfer to rich contexts? And the moveNproves themselves have been designed to help you reveal hidden misconceptions. And that's really important. It also helps you to build that noticing and observing that the ministry keep talking around: notice, recognise, respond. They also allow you to improve planning, because the teachers who've been using them now for 10 years, I'm back in Australia again next week, and some schools it's part of practice there since 2018, 2019. And the teachers use them because they say, Rob, sometimes 3 or 4 years down explicit program journey, these 6 kids actually don't need this for 2 or 3 days because they're beyond it. And it allows the teachers to be more flexible with it. It also, this particular what content one, comes from research on equivalence. So a lot of the moveNproves are not just answerable by a yes or no. We as teachers need to find out where this child's learning is, hook into it, and pull them forward as fast as we possibly can. So these moveNproves, some teachers may find them a little complicated because they go beyond procedure, whereas other teachers go, yep, I get this. So it's making sure teachers are aware that the questions chosen need us to understand what is the level of understanding. Today, obviously, the moveNprove is not a worksheet or a quick quiz. It's a thinking routine. It fits with the New Zealand curriculum because it supports that responsive, explicit teaching. It hooks into the science of learning, the messages that have been going around the roadshows here around the diagnostic check of prior knowledge, misconceptions, and that readiness to move on. And it also satisfies the literature around structured approaches to mastery, because as a teacher, we need to know who needs extra support here. If they know it, what am I doing to extend it? As far as the moveNproves go, they're designed to be very flexible. And the routine variation that you have probably seen in the past, by myself or Supine or Joe Knox or Marie Hurst, or in Australia with Darren Clark, is looking at variations of them. The move originally was about move your thinking. So it wasn't necessarily moving to the corners of the room. That just evolved over time as a lot of teachers chose that option. But you can do them in pairs, where you sit on the floor on a whiteboard and the teacher has 2 minutes to walk around and the kids are talking. I've seen that modelled a number of times as young as new entrant and going up to year 5 and 6. You can sometimes have kids sitting in small whānau groups as well, groups of 3 or 4. And in that 2 minutes before they choose or nominate a letter or the middle, they have a discussion. Now that promotes communication, that promotes explaining, discussion. But what the teachers have said it does best for them is it gives them those 2 minutes to wander around the room and observe the conversations and actually do proper formative assessment by going, I like that strategy. Oh, there's a misconception there. In terms of the questions you use, there's also variations. So sometimes some teachers like to be able to use which one doesn't belong, another commercial site from UU Cubed. And these are ones that generate open, rich discussion. A word of advice: if you're doing one like this, where all the answers can be defended, students also need to be explicitly taught how to interact with open-ended questions, because it's a different type of thinking. And kids need to realise that sometimes a child next to them might have a different answer to them. That doesn't mean that theirs is wrong, because this is what we call the hidden classroom. Sometimes kids learn that if this person answers that answer, that's what I will follow. So it's allowing kids the opportunity to realise that as your teacher today, there could be 3 or 4 answers for here. And if you can defend them with your reasoning and articulation, then that is good. You've generalised. Well done. The second one down is being sent in by some teachers to say, Rob, what we do now is we actually put up sometimes a question, just a basic arithmetic problem. And we asked the kids what sort of strategy. So they said, it's not really a moveNprove, but I said, look, I love it when teachers start playing around with things. I said, you've kept the intent. It's not just a tick or cross question. You're using it to ascertain what strategic backgrounds do these tamariki bring? And I said, that is what these routines are all about. The next one that was sent in by a high school teacher. She says, Rob, I don't do it often, but we included it in. All the answers are incorrect. She said, I do have to have a certain relationship. It doesn't work with all my high school classes, she said, but where it's occasionally a bit of a joke, it goes in. And then, of course, you can do simpler ones, just the true or false, which a lot of our younger teachers do with their new entrants as well. Sometimes it's just, what do you think? But the aims are the same. It gets kids talking, it gets them comparing, it gets them reasoning, it gets them listening to each other. And it also, all the time, is using questions that are more conceptually based. A reminder that all the move and proves can be turned into rich tasks. So once you've diagnosed where the kids are for that week, you can explicitly teach from the programs or NZ Maths, or some schools can teach explicitly with a minimal support. Then you can actually get these kids to actually use or create their own. So if you've been part of the workshops that Jo Marie, Sue and I have delivered, we do demonstrations on this to say, this is your rich task of the week where kids can be self-directed. It's a very powerful way to transfer knowledge. So that's a great way to get every week that this is the open one of the open tasks that kids can be getting on with. And in the last term, I've seen this very successfully done with new entrant kids over here in Whatutahi Christchurch, going up into the intermediates and high schools. In terms of access to teachers is essential. I always say if a teacher can't find it in 4 or 5 seconds, well, then they need to be able to do so, because we don't have that time to look for things. I want instant access. In terms of public domains for moveNprove in New Zealand, the ARBs are a fantastic resource. I've been sharing with schools these. They're still very, very useful. They're very conceptual. And despite the change of curriculum and the change of direction, these are still very powerful sites, and everything is up to date in terms of the maths pedagogy knowledge. Some of the context may need to change, but teachers can hop on those, and I provided you with a generic username and password that the NZC are more than happy for me to share. There's also commercial sites that you've seen through our Discuss and Defend. Remember, all our Discuss and Defends is just the routine. We show access to lots of commercial sites that do this. So the which one doesn't belong is a very popular one to hop onto. If you wanted to make your own, then what you can do is, for those who are with us, you have templates to create your own, create and collaborate. And with those, you're able to sometimes just copy and paste it on to the template. And here we have an instant moveNprove to make your own, because naturally I had just a finite amount that we give to schools as a starter kit, but the power is to be able to teach yourself how to fish, not just take the fish. So we're making sure you get those in. In terms of public domains for accessing these, because some people here today may not be with the Learner First, I'll talk about that in a moment. When I wrote these for the ministry, they went on the Learner First site, and they've moved all those just-in-time resources across to the site. And it's great that they're still there. And also our public Facebook page will have them at the top. So those are all the ones that are freely available through the New Zealand Ministry, who had a contract with the Learner First, so they're part of the Crown copyright. So those are all up there, and I put the links to those as well. But for those with us, for our partner schools, we have got all the resources aligned for everybody, and that's a big thank to Beth Hamilton, who's with us in the background today. She has spent the time to make them amazingly accessible for all teachers in year 1, 2, 3 and 4, and all those now are in one-stop shop. And as part of that, there's also the workshop links to how to create and collaborate on these as well. So if you're with us, it's worth going into these things. And if you go into these things, what you'll find as well is everything is summarized. So we spent time putting together a leaflet on how do we work with the moveNprove. So everything I've said today is already online because you won't send a copy of the slides out, but everything's here. So when you go onto the links, you can see the booklet that will take you through the origins of them. I can see photographs there of some kids over in Australia. We've got some kids over here in Wanaka doing a moveNprove using color coding. So it talks about ways to do them, overcoming the challenges. It talks about how to make your own moveNproves, and it talks about all the moveNprove variations. It also talks about the starter collection. And just to remind ourselves, when you do go onto it, on the public domain, you'll still see this heat map. Just to explain where that came from, what's happening here is because the moveNproves have been designed to assess concepts that the standardized tests use, they are purposefully not linked to one year group. To give you one example, case in point, the one I showed you before, the 5 + 4 = box plus 5, that one officially is year 2 and year 3. But nationally and over in Australia as well, by year 6, 30 to 40% of 4,000 students still don't know it. So it's important to say to your teachers, please don't just think I'm a year 3 teacher, I want a year 3 moveNprove. They've been designed for those people to look hopefully beyond that limited view and look at the more bigger scope. It's about finding these misconceptions. And to share some advice from teachers, they said it sounds to me hugely rewarding that you're the first teacher in fractions to suddenly have a year 5 kid get it because you've identified a misconception that was born 2 or 3 years ago. That's often not exposed if everything's too structured. We've got to get some non-routine and unfamiliar into explicit teaching as well. So these have been designed just to do that. And obviously there's a nice new format now, just tidying them up a bit as well, because, we like things to look good on the screen. But as teachers, if you write your own, we know that teachers don't like sharing stuff sometimes because they've said to me, Rob, I'm too embarrassed to share. They're not as professional. End of the day, you can just have a template or just a screen on itself with a good moveNprove from the ARBs. So wrapping up today. The intent of the moveNprove, as I've said, it's not really a quiz. It's a short diagnostic routine that helps teachers today see what the kids bring and what they actually understand. It's a bit of a conceptual snapshot. And if you choose a moveNprove that connects to the knowledge you're teaching, that is the best way of doing it. Some teachers go back to it at the end of the week with different numbers, just to say to kids, let's see how effective explicit teaching has been. I know that you can practice the same routine in guided and independent ways, but you need to be able to transfer it. Just like I've taught you adjectives to put in a closed procedure all week and write your own sentence. Fantastic. Now I need you to write a quick sentence or two about your weekend so I can see you transfer. So in English, we know we always transfer across. A teacher would never think not to. But in maths, sometimes we want to make sure we've got other activities that are not just in the book. The book does the basic bits, but it's what else happens. And your moveNprove has been designed for that just to happen. So I will finish here and come off the line. So that was a nice little 20-minute, 25-minute introduction or consolidation over the moveNproves. If people need to contact me about anything on the New Zealand curriculum, then just come straight to me at Rob at the Learner First. But no, info at the Learner First or Maths at the Learner First will go to the team and everybody. And that would be a nice way to contact us. So if anybody's got any questions later on, please do contact me. That would be fantastic. So I say thank you to all of you for giving it your time on a Thursday afternoon.